Beelzebub, queen of gluttony, goddess of the buzz, the biggest party girl in all of hell, was bored out of her mind. That never happened. Ever. Her hive was always poppin'. The music? Loud. The booze? Endless. The energy? Chaotic perfection. And yet here she was, slumped over a fancy-ass golden throne, surrounded by passed-out demons, empty bottles of Beelzebub rolling across the floor. The neon lights flickered against the haze of sweet-smelling smoke, but all she could think was, same damn thing every night. She loved her parties. Loved being the center of attention, the queen of indulgence, the ultimate party goddess. But lately something felt like she'd been hearing the same song on loop for centuries, and suddenly she wasn't in the mood to dance anymore. Even with Vortex by her side, her ever-chill, ever-cool hellhound boyfriend, something inside her was itching for something new and different. And that's how she ended up here. In a rinky-dink, run-down little dive bar in the middle of nowhere. It was the kind of place no self-respecting demon queen would step foot in. Sticky floors, dim lighting, an old jukebox playing some outdated-ass song in the corner. No neon. No smoke machines. No massive party crowd. Just a handful of grumpy demons, a bartender who looked like he'd rather be dead again, and the unmistakable scent of cheap booze and regret. And sitting at the bar on a stool that was way too big for him, was the smallest human she had ever seen. Beelzebub stopped in her tracks. Humans in hell? Not that weird. Poor little things ended up here all the time for whatever sins they racked up topside. Some were sobbing messes. Some tried to act tough. Some didn't even realize they were dead. But this one, this tiny, scrappy-looking human, he was just sitting there, sipping his drink like he had nowhere better to be, staring blankly at the liquor shelf in front of him. No fear. No panic. Not even mild curiosity about the 9-foot-tall, fox-like, bee-themed demon queen currently staring him down. Beelzebub loved weird little surprises. Grinning, she strutted up to the bar, her many arms stretching lazily, wings buzzing slightly with excitement. She leaned against the counter way too close to him and smirked. Well, she purred, her voice dripping with honeyed amusement. Didn't expect to find a snack-sized human in a place like this. Nothing. No reaction. He barely glanced at her before taking another sip of whiskey. Didn't expect a giant bee lady to ruin my quiet drinking night, but here we are, he said flatly. Oh, he had nerve. Beelzebub's grin widened. She liked that. Ruin, she gasped, dramatically clutching her chest like he had physically wounded her. Oh babe, you wound me. Don't you know who I am? Some kind of bug lady, he guessed. Beelzebub cackled. A loud, unapologetic, full-body laugh that actually made the bartender flinch. This guy? This tiny, unimpressed little human? Hilarious. You are absolutely adorable, she declared, slamming one of her hands down on the counter. Bartender, get my lil guy here a real drink. That weak-ass whiskey isn't gonna cut it. The bartender, a tired-looking imp, did not argue. He just poured something violently neon-colored into a glass and slid it over. The human looked at the glowing liquid, unimpressed. What the hell is this? Beelzebub's baby. Beelzebub beamed. It's my own special brew. Got a little bit of everything in it. You drink it, you feel it. The human squinted at the glass. That sounds like a lawsuit waiting to happen. Pfft. You're in hell, little guy. No laws here. She nudged it toward him. Come on. One sip. He hesitated. Then slowly he picked up the glass and took the tiniest sip imaginable. Instantly his entire body shuddered. Beelzebub leaned in. So, this is the worst thing I've ever tasted, he croaked. Another laugh exploded out of her, wings buzzing wildly. Oh my Satan, I love you. She threw an arm or three around his shoulders, pulling him close like they were already besties. Come on, tell me your name, tiny dude. I gotta know who I'm falling in love with tonight. He sighed, clearly realizing he was never getting rid of her. It's Blake. Beelzebub gasped. That's adorable. You're adorable. I'm calling you Little Blakey from now on. Please don't. Too late, Little Blakey. And just like that, Beelzebub decided this tiny, grumpy, unimpressed human was her new favorite person in the world. And maybe, just maybe, something inside her itched for more than just a one-night conversation. Maybe this tiny man was exactly what she'd been looking for. Something new and different. Just what she wanted. Beelzebub was obsessed. Not in the creepy stalker-y way, okay, maybe a little bit. But in the holy hell, this tiny guy is the most interesting thing I've seen in centuries kind of way. It started as a casual curiosity. A one-time bar encounter. A fun little diversion. But before she knew it, she was showing up at that same dive bar every other night. Buzzing with excitement the moment she spotted Blake in his usual spot. Sipping his usual drink. Looking thoroughly unimpressed with the world. And Beelzebub? Beelzebub was determined to change that. Every time she saw him, she made it her mission to get a reaction out of him. She tried everything. She showed up in her loudest, most extravagant outfits, glowing gold and pink, dripping in jewels, looking like she had just stepped out of a fever dream. Blake barely blinked. She slammed down rounds of her strongest Beelzebub, challenging him to a drinking contest. He lost, obviously. She told the wildest stories from her centuries of partying. Tales of drunken brawls with lust demons, accidentally setting an entire city on fire, betting a soul in a poker game just for fun. Blake just sipped his drink and muttered, "That's nice." And yet, he never left. That was the weird part. He could have gotten up, walked away, ignored her completely. But no. Every time she plopped down next to him, draping all 6 of her arms over the bar like she owned the place, Blake stayed and listened. He watched her with those quiet, steady eyes of his. And that got under her skin in a way nothing else ever had. The bar became their thing. Beelzebub, the absolute embodiment of chaos, and Blake, the tiny, grumpy human who seemed so unimpressed with everything she did. It was hilarious and so addicting. And it was dangerously becoming something she looked forward to. Some nights, she'd burst into the bar like a thunderstorm, full of electric energy, dragging Blake into whatever ridiculous scheme she had cooked up that day. Once, she convinced him to play a drinking game where they took a shot every time someone in the bar started a fight. They blacked out in 30 minutes. Other nights, it was quieter. They'd just sit there side by side, drinking in comfortable silence. And those nights scared her the most. Because Beelzebub didn't do quiet. She thrived on noise, on energy, on the buzz of 100 voices all screaming at once. But with Blake, she didn't need any of that. He could just be herself. And Satan help her, but she liked it. It started slowly with subtle little things. She stopped throwing parties every night. Stopped forcing herself to be the center of attention. She found herself making excuses to leave her hive early, telling herself, "Oh, I'll just stop by for one drink. One conversation. No big deal." Except it was a big deal. Because every time she saw Blake, her chest did this stupid fluttery thing. Every time he muttered some sarcastic, dry comment, she wanted to grab him and shake him and kiss the hell out of him just to see if she could finally get him to break character. Every time he smiled, which was rare, but wow, when it happened, she felt like she'd won the biggest prize in hell. And one night, sitting at the bar, half drunk and more honest than she should have been, she finally admitted it to herself. She wanted him badly. Not as a party favor. Not as a distraction. Not as a one-night fling. She wanted him and only him. All of him. Even if he was small. Even if he was nothing like her usual type. Hell, maybe because he was nothing like her usual type. Blake was quiet where she was loud. Calm where she was wild. Unshakable where she was pure, unfiltered chaos. And the contrast? The absolute thrill of it? It was intoxicating. She had never craved anything like this before. And the scariest part? She had no idea what to do about it. The decision was never supposed to be hard. It should have been easy. Beelzebub was the queen. She didn't need anyone. She could have anyone whenever she wanted. She was the life of every party, the center of every universe she entered. No one could stand up to her energy, her vibe, her chaotic brilliance. And yet, for the first time in centuries, Beelzebub found herself staring at the mess that had become her life, torn between the comfort of what she knew and the unfamiliar pull of something new, something strange. Something that made her feel alive in a way she hadn't for a long time. Vortex had always been there. Her steady, strong rock. He was her boyfriend, her longtime boyfriend. The guy who kept everything running smoothly when she got lost in the haze of her never-ending parties. The guy who understood her, or at least knew how to deal with her crazy energy. He was safe. He was reliable. And then there was Blakey. The tiny, weird, sarcastic human who'd come into her life like a whirlwind of quiet, shaking everything up. The guy who didn't ask for anything, but who gave her something she hadn't realized she needed. A breath of fresh air. It had started as a fling, a curiosity. But now, after weeks of wild nights and quiet moments that made her feel like she was floating on air, Beelzebub knew one thing for sure. She couldn't go back. It wasn't even about Blake being different. He wasn't just some kind of novelty for her to entertain. No, it was about the freedom he made her feel. The way he saw her, really saw her, in a way no one else had. It was the way her heart raced when he smiled or when he looked at her like she was something worth caring about, not just the queen of everything. But then there was Vortex. Her loyal, sweet hellhound. He deserved better. He deserved someone who could be there. Someone who wasn't so lost in their own world, so distracted by their craving for excitement that they barely noticed the incredible guy standing right in front of them. Beelzebub hated that she was letting him down. But she wasn't being fair to him anymore. Not when her thoughts kept drifting to Blake. Not when her mind kept wandering to the feeling of his tiny hands in hers. The sound of his voice, so calm and steady, grounding her in ways she hadn't realized she needed. So she decided. He had to let Vortex go. The night she finally did it, the club was quieter than usual. Maybe it was the haze of too many Beelzebuses, or maybe it was the nervous energy buzzing around her. But when Beelzebub walked into the dimly lit space, she could feel the weight of the moment in the air. She wasn't ready to face Vortex, but she also couldn't put it off any longer. He was sitting in the corner as usual. His usual easygoing smile on his face, a drink in hand. His massive form looked a little out of place among the smaller, skinnier demons lounging around. Vortex was a rock, one that Beelzebub had leaned on for so long. But tonight she didn't want to lean. She walked up to him, every step feeling like it echoed through the silence of the room. He looked up when she approached, the smile on his face softening a little. "Hey B, what's up?" Her heart was pounding. Beelzebub opened her mouth trying to say something, anything. But the words just stuck. Finally, she took a deep breath, her 6 arms crossing over her chest as she looked him square in the eyes. "Voice it. I think it's time." Vortex didn't flinch, didn't panic, didn't make some huge emotional scene like she was secretly hoping he would. Instead, he just gave her a steady look, his eyes soft and understanding, like he already knew what was coming. "Time for what?" He swallowed. "Time for us to go our separate ways." The silence that fell between them felt like it lasted forever. But finally Vortex nodded slowly. His voice was steady, calm, like he had seen this coming from a mile away. "Yeah. I figured as much." Beelzebub felt like the wind had been knocked out of her chest. She'd expected pain or at least some kind of reaction. But Vortex wasn't angry. He wasn't heartbroken. He was just accepting. "I want you to be happy, B," he said quietly, his eyes searching hers. "I can't be the one to hold you back. I never could." Beelzebub felt a lump in her throat. She hated the fact that this was happening. Hated that she was doing this to someone who had only ever loved her. But deep down she knew this was the right thing. For both of them. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice tight. "I didn't want to hurt you. But I have to do this. For me." He gave her a smile. A small, soft smile that didn't hide the sadness in his eyes. "I know, B. I know." And just like that she was free. Free to fly toward the thing that had been calling to her. The thing that made her feel again. To be with her dear Blake. She didn't waste any time. Beelzebub was already on her way out the door, the buzzing of her wings lifting her into the air. But just before she took off, she paused. Vortex was still sitting there, watching her, his hands resting on his lap. She stopped. And for a moment she felt a twinge of regret, like she should say something more. Something comforting. Something that made sense. But all she said was, "Take care of yourself, Vortex. You deserve it." And then she was gone just like that. And she didn't look back. And maybe that was the best part of it. She wasn't leaving him behind. She was just choosing something new and better for herself. She was looking forward to the future that was hers to create. One that involved Blake. The wind rushed by them, a wild roar that whipped through Beelzebub's golden fur. Her wings flapped with a steady rhythmic buzz, cutting through the thick neon-lit skies of hell like a giant glittering bee. The city beneath them sprawled out in all its chaotic glory. Fiery rivers of lava, buzzing markets, demons eating everything from pizza to souls. But none of that mattered now. She wasn't there. She was free. And she wasn't flying alone. The tiny human man in her arms was gripping her tightly, eyes wide with both awe and, yeah, a little bit of fear. He had no idea what he was getting into, but honestly, that was part of the fun. "Relax," Beelzebub cooed, her wings cutting through the air like a cool breeze, but her voice was all smooth and teasing. "We're gonna have a blast. Just let go." He looked up at her with those wide eyes, his face still pale. "Easy for you to say. You've got wings. I'm not exactly built for this kind of ride." She could feel his heartbeat racing against her. So cute. She liked it. "Well, maybe you should have thought about that before agreeing to take a ride with a queen," she teased, giving him a playful wink. "But hey, you wanted adventure, right?" His face twisted into that cute little, "oh crap" look, but he didn't argue. And for some reason that made Beelzebub smile even more. She could feel the energy coursing through her. So alive, so electric, just like the moment they had first met at that dive bar. She was a whirlwind, always in motion, always vibrating with excitement, and now with him clutched in her arms, she wanted him to feel it too. But the air was cold and her little human was shivering. Not that she blamed him. Humans weren't made for this kind of speed. But Beelzebub? She thrived on this rush. She glanced down at him, a mischievous grin spreading across her face. All right. If you're gonna pass out from fear, I guess I gotta make this comfy for you." Before he could protest, Beelzebub wrapped her arms around him even more securely, pulling him closer to her chest, feeling him press into the soft golden fur of her belly. "There. Cozy now." He blinked up at her, his face now flushed with embarrassment more than anything else. "I didn't ask for a snuggle, you know." "Who said it's a snuggle? I'm just making sure you don't fall." Beelzebub smirked, her body swaying in the air as if to prove just how stable it was to be wrapped up like that. But still she kept him tight, her 6 arms holding him like he was the most precious thing in the world. His hand clutched her fur, more confidently now, as he adjusted to the crazy speed. "You've gotta slow down though. I can't even keep track of where we're going." Beelzebub didn't slow down. Instead she sped up, tilting them sideways and soaring through the air with a wild, carefree laugh. "Where's the fun in that?" she shouted over the wind, her wings buzzing with enough energy to send them higher into the glowing sky. "This is the best part. You gotta hang on." Blake let out a yelp, holding on tighter as they soared upward. He loved it. He wasn't screaming. No, that wasn't his style. Instead, he was clutching her in silent awe, completely lost in the thrill of it all. Beelzebub could feel his body pressed against hers, a warm little spot against her stomach, and that was when she got the idea. She giggled, leaning her head down to whisper, her breath warm and playful. "All right, time for your next adventure." He froze. What do you mean by that?" Blake asked. With a grin, Beelzebub began to tilt her body downward, heading toward the endless abyss of hell below. "I'm gonna give you the best seat in the house." And without missing a beat, she pulled him even closer to her stomach, where her glowing yellow stripes met the soft golden fur. "Climb in," she said, her voice laced with a mixture of excitement and amusement. He blinked up at her, his face now a mix of confusion and disbelief. Are you serious?" "Oh, I'm serious," she purred, completely unfazed by his nervousness. "Trust me, it's comfy in there. Nice and warm. You'll be safe." "But I don't know," Blake said. "Hey, you wanted a crazy adventure, right?" she teased, her antennae flicking in that way they did when she was feeling playful. "This is as crazy as it gets." She wasn't gonna leave him any other option, not with the way her wings were buzzing with all the adrenaline of the night. The wild, free, high-speed flight through hell was calling to her. She wanted him to be part of it, to experience it all. Finally, after a few more hesitant moments, he gave a nervous little laugh. "I'm not gonna fall in, right?" "No way," Beelzebub said with a grin. "You're gonna be my little passenger, all snug and safe." And with that, she gently pressed him into the soft curves of her belly, letting him crawl inside her fur. "Here goes nothing," Blake muttered before slowly, almost awkwardly, crawling inside. Beelzebub's belly was big enough to hold him comfortably. He could actually stretch out a little once he was fully in there. The inside of her body was warm and oddly cozy. Her soft fur felt like a cushion that hugged him as he shifted inside. A perfect little space where he couldn't fall or slip. He found himself practically sinking into the softness, surrounded by the pulse of her energy. The low hum of her body as she flapped her wings, the gentle vibrations from her every movement. It was like being wrapped up in a huge, vibrating blanket of comfort. Beelzebub let out a low hum, a contented purr as she felt him settle inside her. "See? Told ya. Nice and cozy in there," Beelzebub said, her voice coming from outside, full of that light-hearted teasing. He was a little weirded out, but honestly, he couldn't deny the fact that it felt good. Almost like being held by a warm, soft cloud. The world outside was intense, but inside he was safe. Blake's voice was muffled now, but still full of that amused disbelief. "It's actually pretty comfy in here. Kinda like I'm in a big, soft sleeping bag." Beelzebub's laugh echoed through the air. "Exactly. A flying, fuzzy, totally awesome sleeping bag. Now just relax and enjoy the ride. Let's make some memories, Blake. You're gonna love it up here," Beelzebub chirped, her wings now buzzing even faster as they shot toward the glowing sky. "I'm gonna show you a whole new life, little guy. It's gonna be the most fun you've ever had." Blake didn't respond, too busy adjusting to the whole weird, strange new world that was now his reality. But Beelzebub felt his tiny body relax against hers, felt the calm settle in. As they soared, the world below seemed so far away. Blake didn't have to worry about anything. "I could get used to this," Blake muttered, grinning despite himself. Beelzebub chuckled softly, her body vibrating with happiness. "You better, buddy. 'Cause this is just the beginning."